Good afternoon, EDUC 112. How are you guys doing? And I'm going to give you guys a little PowerPoint to walk through this time so we can look at the billions and trillions of dollars that are coming out from Washington, D.C. to address COVID. I think this is very appropriate in our finance and legislation class, and for you to think differently about how funds are allocated. So the title of this is Billions of Dollars in Education Funding. Is it equitable? Here we go. Okay, so basically how much money are we talking? Just alone in K-12, about $335 billion are given to schools, K-12 schools nationally, and about $39 billion is coming to California. To put that in perspective, normally the federal government gives us about 3 to 4 billion a year. So it's 10 times what we get normally has come out since COVID. So it's by far the biggest infusion of money and into our schools. And in fact, back in 2008, during the Great Recession, when President Obama was trying to restart the economy, he put out, I think, a total that came to California was about 13 or 15 billion. So he put a lot out also, but nothing like this. This is an unbelievable amount of money. And the question then is, when the feds give you money, they have strings attached. That's what they do. And sometimes the strings are sometimes the leash is very short. This one's more liberal. You can spend it in a lot of areas, but it still has it's still mandated how the areas they want you to spend it in. It's not like it's non-restrictive. It has a lot of restrictions to it. So a lot of people think, well, how do you spend this money? Do you let teachers decide? Is there an equitable distribution funding for all kids in all districts? Should you fund it only low income? Some people think you don't need extra funding. You've already gotten a lot already from the feds, and this new one is a lot more. We already pay for kids to go to school. Why are we paying extra, and not just a little extra, but way more funding to get kids back to school when we already fund them to do that? And then others say, let the parents decide, right? So it doesn't really have, you have to decide locally what you're going to do and how you're going to do it. You definitely have to keep in the categories they talk about. But in the bottom line is, how do you think it would be spent? Think about that, right? Normally the way it's spent is the feds tell you how to spend it. The superintendent administration talk to some staff, and then the board approves that. And some districts involve everybody real well. Some say, no, here's what we're going to do. So the interesting thing about what's going on now is they funded all this based on the number of Title I kids in your school. Title I is a funding source that has some factors to it. To qualify for Title I, either you can't speak English, you're low income, homeless, or foster. So there's a little that, and actually homeless and foster qualify for multiple POS, not just Title I. So districts apply for Title I based on how many low-income kids they have, how many can't read, speak English and read English. So that's how it's dictated. Now in California, we have 330 charters and schools that will receive no funding. Let me show you this. I'm going to stop my screen and go to the website and show you this interesting thing. And you'll get a chance to look at this. So this breaks down how much money each school is going to get with the CARES funding. And it's really interesting, as you'll see. LA is getting $4.7 billion. Los Angeles Unified is getting $11,000 per kid, right? Then you kind of scroll down here, and schools like San Diego get about 5,000. And then let's go here. Let's go about midway. No, let's go to the end. Okay, let's look at the end. Here are schools in California that pretty much are getting $0 from the federal government. They have children. They have poor children. They don't have maybe as many as some other districts, but a lot of them don't choose to apply for Title I funding because when you're small, right? Let me show you a couple of small school districts that I work with. When you're small, it's really not worth going for this money because you get like $7,000, right? And then you have to do $18,000 in paperwork. It's really hard to do that. So that's why big districts benefit because they'll have a lot of staff in the office or the district office handling all the paperwork, and then they spend a ton of money there. So, look at this little school district, Neyland Elementary in Humboldt, only get $8,600 or $700 per kid, right? And that is pathetic compared to others. Look at these little charter schools only getting $80 a kid. $80 where LA is getting $11,000. Let me pick one up more for you here. So you see a lot of these charters do not get it as much money, even though they're serving children. So they did not break the money down. I mean, look at this poor little Maple Elementary in Humboldt, another one in Humboldt, small school district. It probably has about maybe 15 or 20 kids, but they only get a little bit of money. How come they don't get $11,000 like LA? It's the decision they made at the federal level, and that's the result. Let me go back here. And so that's how we broke out in California. What's interesting about that, so LA will get $4.7 billion, and they do not have to spend it on the poor kids. It can go to all kids. So kids in Pacific Palisades will also get $11,000 per kid. So the argument was, oh, let's give it to all the poor kids. But in reality, the district gets the funding for the poor kids, and then they allocate however they want. So the argument that says this money should go to poor kids is not true. It's just the Title I heavy districts will be able to give money to the rich kids and poors, where you see some of those other districts that got $0 will not be able to do anything. So I just thought that's super interesting to me. Excuse me. I go back to screen share. There we go. Okay. Come on. There we go. Okay. So remember, in most big political decisions, the decisions are made by legislators, right? They hear from people and talk to lobbyists and all that. But basically, the state senators and citizens make the decision, right? And the lobbyists and school leaders and others try to say, hey, can you do it this way and that way? But in the end, the legislators make the decision. And frankly, none of them have ever run a school in their life, but they get to make the decisions because they want to say, hey, I help out schools. And the way I'm going to help them out is X and Y. So non-educators, generally speaking, make a lot of decisions for us. And that is kind of the way it is. And I think part of it is that's the way they get reelected. Right? They get reelected because they said, hey, I helped out the schools. So what's your assignment for week 4? It's got 6 little questions to it. 1, you heard from the wonderful Sarah Bachez in her role as the leader of government relations for CASBO. Right? What did you learn from that? And she has a big job. She lobbies for 1,200 school districts in California. Listening to her and thinking about yourself, what do you think is the most important? Why is she so successful in what she does? And give me 3 characteristics that you see from watching her or thinking about yourself to be successful as a person who represents school districts. And I always like to hear this. So, each one you can do like a paragraph. Everyone says we put more money into schools, they'll be more successful. So now here comes the boatload of money. Does more money into schools mean better results, or maybe it's good, maybe it's not? Will it be effective? If schools don't get better, way better after this infusion, I really think we have to look at a new way of providing education. So as I told you, legislators put measures into that. And I want to know, do you think the state and national legislators should dictate that, or the local school district? So again, a lot of times they'll say, okay, spend the money. Oh, but you can only spend it in these 5 areas instead of going, here, districts, here's $100. You spend it the way you think's best for kids. They say they do that, but then they put all these restrictions to it. And then take a look at the chart and how things are funded to the 6 million students in California. And then what would you do? Would you fund all kids? Would you fund all kids for half the money and so every kid? I don't understand how we call this CARES money. And care, I don't think, as far as I heard, COVID does not discriminate. I think our lower income and higher poverty death rates are higher than wealthier areas. But to say you're not going to give $1 to a kid based on their zip code is a head scratcher. But you may think different. You may think the funding should go only to low income kids and schools that have high percentage of low income kids. The way they kind of do that, you have to have 40% low income kids to get Title One. So I scratched my head again. So if let's say you have 12% poor kids in your district, they're not going to get $1. There's not enough of them, according to what they say. So I don't know how the money doesn't follow the kids. Okay, so what do you think? How would you allocate that funding? I'm going to give you guys just a measly. How about $39 billion? How would you allocate that to schools to help them get back, help them in this COVID era to come back to school and deal with that? And then lastly, if you could just kind of shoot over to me your final project presentation, what you're thinking, and then I can get back to you and see how's it going, or give you some guidance. I will do that. Let me go back. This is your assignment. What'd you learn from Sarah, and what characteristics make her important? Do you think more money means better schools? Do legislators should legislators dictate how funding should be spent? And then lastly, when looking at the chart, how would you allocate $39 billion? You're sitting in the throne. How would you allocate it to be as equitable as you think it should be? Okay, that's it, you guys. I hope all's going well, and good luck with assignment 4.